Welcome to the Workplace Harassment and Anti-Discrimination Training. This session is designed to help everyone understand our shared responsibility in maintaining a respectful, inclusive, and safe workplace. Harassment and discrimination can have serious impacts on individuals and the organization, which is why it's important that employees know what behaviors are not acceptable, how the policy protects them, and what steps to take if concerns arise. In this training, we will review the purpose of the policy, key definitions, employee and supervisor responsibilities, and realistic workplace scenarios that show how this policy applies in everyday situations. This Workplace Harassment and Anti-Discrimination Training video is brought to you by Annabelle Otero and Ellie Floyd. Why this policy matters. This policy exists to protect employees from harassment, discrimination, and retaliation while promoting fairness, dignity, and respect in the workplace. It also ensures the organization remains compliant with federal, state, and local employment laws, including Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. Most importantly, the policy helps create an environment where employees feel safe, supported, and able to focus on their work without fear of mistreatment or bias. The purpose of this policy is to establish and maintain a workplace that is free from harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. The policy applies to everyone within the organization, including full-time, part-time, temporary employees, interns, supervisors, managers, and even contractors. It also applies to behavior that occurs on-site, while working remotely, during work-related events, or during interactions with clients, vendors, or other third parties. To fully understand how this policy works, it's important to review a few key definitions. Harassment refers to unwelcome conduct based on protected characteristics that creates a hostile or offensive work environment. Discrimination involves unfair treatment in employment decisions based on protected traits such as race, sex, age, disability, or religion. Protected characteristics are traits protected by law, and retaliation occurs when someone is treated adversely for reporting misconduct or participating in an investigation. All employees share responsibility for maintaining a respectful workplace by acting professionally, following this policy, and reporting concerns promptly. Employees are never required to confront the individual involved before reporting an issue. Supervisors and managers have additional responsibilities, including setting the tone for appropriate behavior and immediately reporting any known or suspected violations to human resources. Supervisors should not attempt to investigate or resolve complaints on their own. Practical Scenario 1. Inappropriate comments. Let's take a look at our first practical scenario. In this example, an employee repeatedly makes jokes or comments during team meetings that references a coworker's age or gender. Even when framed as humor, these comments are unwelcome and create discomfort for others. Over time, this type of behavior can contribute to a hostile work environment and may qualify as harassment under the policy. Practical Scenario 2. Unequal treatment. In our second scenario, an employee who meets all qualifications is repeatedly passed over for training or promotional opportunities. The decision appears to be influenced by factors such as age or disability rather than job performance. This example highlights how discrimination can occur through patterns of unequal treatment, even when there are no offensive comments or overt behaviors. These scenarios demonstrate how harassment and discrimination can appear in everyday workplace situations, sometimes in subtle ways. Recognizing these behaviors is the first step towards maintaining a respectful and inclusive environment. In the next section, Allie will explain the appropriate steps employees should take if they experience or witness situations like these, including how to report concerns and how the organization responds.
In practical scenario 1, It detailed an employee witnessing another making inappropriate jokes related to a coworker's age or gender, which made the impacted coworker visibly uncomfortable and distracted. In this situation, there are several steps an employee should take to respond. First, those that witness these jokes should extend their support to the impacted victim in a private manner, such as by addressing their discomfort and offering to talk about it. However, it's important that witnesses respect the privacy and comfort level of their impacted individual, as they may not want to discuss it. Second, witnesses should encourage the impacted victim to report the behavior to the organization's designated representative. Third, if the victim chooses not to report the behavior, a witness can still choose to file a report. In fact, all employees are encouraged to report misconduct they witness, and individuals in leadership roles are often required to make reports, as outlined by their job duties. Fifth, all involved individuals must cooperate with the investigation in order to maintain integrity and lead to a final verdict. Lastly, all involved parties should maintain confidentiality and stay alert. This can be done by refraining from discussing the situation outside of the investigation, reporting signs of retaliation, and upholding an anti-discrimination and harassment-free workplace. In practical scenario 2, it detailed an employee experiencing discrimination based on their age or disability status, despite meeting the necessary qualifications for career advancement. In this situation, there are several steps the impacted victim should take to advocate for themselves. First, affected individuals should document each incident that occurs, such as the dates when they were denied advancement opportunities, instances where age or disability status were mentioned or alluded to, and any paper trails that document these instances, such as emails, text messages, or performance reviews. Second, the victim should ask their leadership for clarification on advancement rejections if they feel comfortable. Examples of questions that could be asked include if there are certain qualifications they don't meet, or if there's any steps they can take to improve their chances in the future. However, it's important to note that the impacted individual should look for vague or inconsistent responses, or explanations that do not align with their documented qualifications or performance reviews. Any inconsistencies could serve as profound evidence should an investigation be conducted. Third, report the concerns to the organization's designated representatives. Fourth, participate in the investigation truthfully and do not embellish or dramatize certain instances. All reports must be made in good faith to maintain the integrity of the investigation and for anti-retaliation protections to be valid. Fifth, engage in support resources if needed, such as your organization's HR department, the Employee Assistance Program, disability accommodation resources, or career development and mentorship opportunities. Lastly, follow up at the conclusion of the investigation and report any retaliation, monitor if the situation improves, and escalate concerns if needed. When reporting conduct that's believed to be harassing or discriminatory, there are certain procedures that employees should follow. First, you should assess whether the situation can be considered to be harassing or discriminatory. For instance, does the behavior pertain to a legally protected characteristic, or does it make the workplace hostile? Second, you should gather and document the details of the situation being reported and any evidence if available. Key details that should be collected include what exactly happened, when and where it occurred, and who was involved. Third, please refer to the organization's specific policies related to anti-harassment and discrimination should you have any questions regarding topics such as confidentiality expectations and non-retaliation protections. Fourth, report the situation, whether you witnessed it or personally experienced it, to your organization's designated representatives as soon as possible. Examples of a designated representative include the HR department, established anonymous hotlines, or leadership officials. After all, reporting concerns in a timely manner prevents the current conduct from continuing further. Fifth, allow the organization to investigate and respond accordingly. Under no circumstances should you try to impede on the integrity of the investigation process. Sixth, should you need, engage in your organization's support resources, such as the Employee Assistance Program for counseling. Lastly, if your organization fails to respond or the concern is severe, consider looking into external reporting options like legal counsel, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or labor unions when applicable. There are several consequences all employees are subject to should they engage in harassing or discriminatory behavior. These include but are not limited to written or verbal warnings, mandatory training or counseling, temporary suspension, job reassignment, and termination in the most severe cases. Furthermore, for individuals in leadership positions that either engage in harassing or discriminatory behavior or fail to report complaints, they are subject to further consequences, including leadership demotion or removal. In order to effectively enforce this policy, there are several steps organizations must take. First, companies must establish straightforward and transparent reporting procedures to ensure that all cases are brought to their attention in a timely manner. Second, all reports must be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. Third, a top-down, zero-tolerance policy should be instilled within the workplace culture for employees of all roles, from entry-level positions to leadership members. Fourth, any applied disciplinary action should be consistent and impartial. Fifth, individuals who report discrimination or harassment concerns must be protected, and their privacy should be maintained when possible. Sixth, regular training sessions should be conducted for all employees to continuously communicate the importance of maintaining a workplace that is free from harassment and discrimination. Seventh, organizations should conduct employee surveys to gather feedback on current reporting procedures and individual experiences throughout the process of an investigation. Lastly, frequent audits should be conducted for anti-discrimination and harassment training, investigation timelines, policy effectiveness, and the appropriateness and consistency of disciplinary actions taken against offenders. Overall, the three main points that should be taken from this policy is that there's a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and discrimination for all employees, regardless of their status in the organization. Individuals who report concerns have protections against retaliation, and it is an organization's responsibility to frequently conduct training sessions for all employees to prevent harassment and discrimination in the workplace. Should you have any questions related to this policy, please refer to our Q&A, which details 3 of the most common questions we anticipate employees to have. First, what should an employee do if they're unsure if something is considered to be harassing or discriminatory? If you are unsure if something is considered to be harassing or discriminatory, still report your concerns to your organization's designated representative. You will not get in trouble for making a report in good faith. Second, will a reporter's identity remain confidential? While it is an organization's duty to maintain privacy as much as possible, absolute confidentiality cannot be guaranteed. However, information related to the report will only be shared with those that are deemed absolutely necessary. Third, if the investigation determines that the conduct was not against company policy, will the reporting employee get in trouble? No. So long as you made the report in good faith, you will not be subject to disciplinary action, and anti-retaliation protections will still apply.